Hello, everybody. My name is Joel Filderman, and welcome to the Dog Trainers Connection. I am not a dog trainer, but these other people you see here are. We get together, we discuss a topic, come up with some thoughts, some ideas, sometimes come up with some answers, but we always have an interesting discussion. And honestly, I had a difficult time coming up with a topic today. And Steve was talking about a topic before we got on, and we just decided to go with it. So, Steve, what was the topic you were talking about?
Well, it's just one of these. I ran across this thing. It was might as well give the credit where credit is due on Twitter,
Sure.
where I guess they're looking at. They're asking people, I believe, to discuss the facial expressions of their dogs. Based on the relationship, can you look at your dog's face? I believe I didn't sign up to be part of this thing, so I'm guessing that's where they're going with this. I could be wrong, but I think that they want to know um, how well you can read your dog's face, or what perception of how the dog feels based on even a photograph, right? A still shot. And I find that like an interesting thing because um, there are a lot of people say until I put my hands on the dog or on the leash, I'm clear until then. But I mean, I can go back to this book. It took me 10 years and $200 to get a book called Working Dogs by Warner and Humphrey. 10 years and $200. Like I did a search, it was like forever, but I finally got this book. And when I did, I found some photos and some captions where they had all these dogs lined up, and the author would say, look at, and they're numbered, right? There's a little tag hanging
Okay.
on. Well, look at number 47. The expression is not appropriate. It's too hard.
Hmm.
Right? So this was basically a study of the military dogs. I want to say it was Switzerland that they did, and I want to say it was either the late 40s or the early 50s, and it was a detailed, serious study where they not only studied and tested the adult dogs, but after the breedings, they studied and tested the puppies. And it was a really intense genetic study on working dogs. The photograph thing kind of blew my mind when I saw that. It's like,
Why was it that the dog's expression was too hard? For too
well,
hard for what?
when you look at the group of dogs, right,
Uh-huh.
there is definitely a dog that's got this face on like a shark, right? It doesn't look
Okay.
like the other dogs, right? It looks like if you let me go, I'll eat the guy with the camera right now,
Got it. Okay.
right? And so since the other dogs weren't apparently like roused by the photographer, but this one was,
Right.
it caused the author to say, look at this dog, look at the expression on this dog. It's not appropriate. Right,
Hmm.
so it falls outside of a dog that they were going to end up breeding because I guess he felt the dog was too suspicious, and he was
Okay.
based on a photo. So now, the question is, I mean, honestly, I look at pictures. I mean, I think we must all do this, right? You see a picture online or whatever, and you see
Yeah.
a dog, you catch
Sure.
a little whale eye or something like that, and you see something, and it's just one moment in time. It may not tell the biggest story, but it's a moment. You could disregard it, or you could take it to heart. It's like, well, I see something here, and if you hang around dogs for lots and lots of years, you start to get an impression from
Sure.
even a single photo. But is that fair? Is what so something I go to the rescue man about. Do
I
you
was
really?
going to ask Jeff, is that something that is necessarily true? Do you look at a dog's face and their expression, and do you know what kind of dog you're dealing with based upon their expression?
So I kind of, my mind splits right down the middle, right?
Okay.
From professional to dog owner,
Right.
right? Because I mean, I you guys have seen Deuce pop his head. Oh, he just winked at me. I mean, that dog's got expressions. I mean, you think I'm animated?
Right.
I mean, for a dog, he is so animated, like his express, and he's got those. When we rescued him, he has those real short bell crops.
Yes.
So it's not like his ears show a lot of his personality. It's
Hmm.
his expression. And I kind of know what kind of mood he's in. All my dogs, for that matter, if I look
Sure.
back on historically, I could certainly see where that applies. And, whether they're happy or sad or, I walk in and there's fuzz all over the place. I don't even say anything. And they're like they know they messed up, that kind of stuff. I think all dog owners can
Sure.
identify with.
Yeah.
From a professional or rescue standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
with pictures, even video, I'm very cautious about making any predetermined opinions on a dog. And from personal experience of working with dogs, where I've worked with some doozies, and man, they're photogenic and they look like gems, and and they're smiling.
Mm-hmm.
Stranger comes near them, you ain't getting that picture. Right? And the flip side, a really stressed out shelter dog. I mean, they
Right.
could potentially have that hard look like Steve was talking about, right? And so do I not go visit a dog and assess it because of a picture, right? Now, I don't think that's what Steve's alluding to.
No.
I'm just
Yeah.
kind of talking out loud,
Right.
So I try to, and even with private clients, like I don't even want to know a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
How old's the dog? What's the dog's name? What's the breed? Tell me the problems you're having. That's it. Like, I don't want to know behavior. I don't want to, there's a lot I don't want to know because I want to look at things fresh.
Right.
And that's the thing with pictures. You could see a dog that looks hard, maybe his ears are up and pressed forward. His mouth is closed, got a pretty deep stare. He could be looking at a tennis ball.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I
Sure.
mean, it's quite possible. So I try not to again have any crap in my head before I go meet a dog. Now, once I know a dog, even dogs that I work here, the rescue dogs,
Mm-hmm.
after a few days, you kind of get a feel for them. You know what they like, and not just their facial expression, but clearly we have to look at the whole body,
Yeah.
right, to form the full sentence of what the dog is telling us. But I could see how facial expressions come into play. And again, I mean, nowadays with pictures, even video, we have to be careful because there are some very skilled people out there that do some wonderful things with pictures,
Mm-hmm.
right? Both, to make a dog present better as an adoptable, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
or to make a dog, look more intimidating. And video too. I mean, you have, what is it? It's called deep fake, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They could take anybody's interview and put a completely different speech attached to the interview.
Yes.
And people like us, we can't tell. Like
Yeah.
maybe people versed in like, video and that deep fake stuff, they can tell that it's a fake speech. But I mean, half the stuff we're looking on the internet isn't even the people talking.
Right.
It's like they're using this thing and you see it with the dogs too, with that you can clearly see the dog's mouth moving, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm very leery of what I see come across my face when I'm on the internet,
Okay.
because it just doesn't tell the whole picture.
Right.
And again, from an owner standpoint, I mean, it's cute as hell. We know, we make funny noises and we do all that goofy stuff with our dogs.
Yeah.
But from a professional standpoint, you could have the meanest dog in the world. You take a squeak and squeak it, all of a sudden he looks cute.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Yep.
See, but the question is, let's take it outside of a photograph. So you walk into somebody's house, you don't have any information or just basic stuff, that what you asked for. You walk in and you're confronted instantly with a dog that has some expression, and you will get, as a professional, some impression, right?
Right.
Now, it's almost like a game now. It was the initial impression based on the expression. Did that come through after you spent some time
Mm-hmm.
working with the dog, right? Is it different than you thought? Or, wow, I got this like straight up from, my instant meeting with that animal, right? Because, dogs in the moment, all that, they're checking you out, I think, very much in the same way. They
Sure.
got to make their assessment real quick. We're good at playing with that, because we know how to stand, we know how to appear, so we're very non-threatening. We know how to do that. But they're looking for that same one moment of, is this guy an okay guy or a not okay guy?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm I'm doing the same thing. When I look at a dog, I'm like, "You okay? I'm okay if you're okay." And
Right.
but then it's about hanging out and messing with the dog a little bit and finding out if I needed to sort of dance or not. Did I dance for free because this dog was going to be cool anyway? But I thought I had to dance for a minute, because this
Mm.
dog was giving me a look like dance,
Mm.
cowboy, start dancing. So, it's an interesting. I think it's an interesting topic. I think it's those folks at the Hunter College. They do all kinds of really slick stuff with dogs.
Uh-huh.
They got a dog lab there. So I don't really know the gist because I didn't sign up because I don't currently have a pet dog myself right now. And I think they were looking for pet owners rather than professionals to
Mm.
talk about. When I read that, I'm like, wait a minute. I feel this one because every time I walk into someplace, it's like I'm going to get a quick impression. I know I'm being looked at the same way I'm looking out. I'm being
Mhm.
looked into, but it's a question of then later on. It's like, wow, that dog was really amazing. I didn't see that right away, or oh, I knew this guy was going to be some trouble. This kind of stuff. So that is another thing. So the photos, I get the photos because I feel the same. And yet I know, as Jeff says, until you're really like with the animal, you don't really know much from even a short video. I mean, and even if you did know them then, things change over time anyway. So we've had some really rough customers where these dogs are like, oh no, 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 and you hang with them, you work with them a little bit, and they're like, oh, everything's good, and you can really flip it around. Just time spent, relationship, and all that other stuff sometimes makes the dog look like a whole nother animal
Sure.
in a certain period of time. But that initial, how do you feel, based on what you see, there's a little something to that, I think, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little interesting. I just wonder, Jeff, as you walk in someplace, you get that feel one way or the other. At the end of the consult, you're ready to leave. How often do you say, I got this guy spot on right from the beginning, or I'm glad I do this like one step in front of the other, and I don't make serious judgments. I mean, no serious professional is going to make like a hard judgment on a
Mhm.
look. But I think just as human beings and dealing with another species, just on a more basic level, I think for safety's sake, how do you walking in? How do you feel, and how often does that like turn
Mhm.
out to be what you thought?
And I mean, that's a little different than looking at a picture. It's a
Yeah,
lot different than looking at a picture.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah,
walking into someone's home. I mean, I probably have the same approach every time I walk into a home because, if it's a happy-go-lucky, doofy dog, it don't matter what I do. The dog's going to be fine. Right. But if I have an apprehensive or fearful dog, or the opposite, I have a really assertive animal, I'm probably entering the home the same exact way. I'm
Sure.
standing by the door for a few minutes. Sometimes I even force myself to look at the molding. And I just stand there, and generally the dog, and we smell like a gazillion dogs. Like, so when we walk into someone's home, the dog is like, whoa, this guy's been everywhere.
Mm.
Like, so that helps us a lot because
Mm-hmm.
it preoccupies behavior,
Mm.
right? So if it's an apprehensive or fearful dog or a more assertive dog, they might kind of step. Why isn't the guy looking at me? He's got to look at me so I can stare him down. Like, the dance you were talking about, Steve, right? And then they get a whiff of my shoes and they're like, oh, hey
Mm.
now,
Mm.
this is one interesting cat, right?
yeah,
But
friends.
I'm always looking out of my peripheral vision because I need to see the tail, I need to see the ears. Like, those are the things that interest me. The dog's overall body posture, not, the stiffness, is it
Yeah.
flowing? I mean, general, and Steve knows and Bonnie knows. I mean, you walk into a home, like, we've assessed in like 30 seconds. Like, it doesn't take long. We're taking a snapshot of that initial because that initial is going to dictate the next hour or two. So like, we're walking in that door and it's starting. I mean, there's times I'm there a couple of minutes, people are like, yeah, and they're doing their thing. They're like, oh, it's okay. Like, and they're like, so, when are you going to start? I'm like, I started as soon as I walked in,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, well, how's he doing? I'm like, he's fine.
No.
And then we all start laughing because they know that they got some issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
From a human perspective. But yeah, it starts right away. I mean, what do you think, Bon?
Yeah, well, I um I think with me, it's like an emotional, like gut feeling of, am I comfortable? Am I not comfortable? And
Is that what you always follow?
um, yeah, and because I tend to be more afraid of dogs that I don't know. I'm not, I'm like always, I guess, expecting or anticipating that it could be something, dicey with them from my experiences when I took cases that I was not prepared for and not experienced enough for. And it was like, whoa, afterwards. And I'm just trying to get out in one piece or, not get bitten. Like,
Always
take
our top priority.
Talk about
could
dancing,
you
huh?
take the dog back a little further on a leash, please?
Mm.
Right, I had some bad ones coming up, and so
You
I'm really wary.
right? You
And
felt that though, right?
oh yeah, felt it, and felt it, and then sort of acted, really calmly because of that, and trying to get comfortable and tell the owner what to do so that I could be more comfortable where
But
we're
did
going to
did
work.
did any of that come out of the visual? Did any of that come out of what you saw from the dog?
I at that time I never saw pictures of them.
But
This
I
was
mean,
back
even just
when,
seeing them when you walked in the door.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely. A quick scan. A boy, the body was how they were standing. Um, Yeah, it was quick. And Joel, your the topic that Steve introduced reminded me of when we were looking to adopt a dog a couple of
Right.
months ago. We were looking at Norwegian elk hounds in rescues, and I would call Joel to say, "What do you think about this one?" Because he somehow has a better like gauge of the face and the expression than I did. He would go, "Nah, that doesn't look right." The
And I think
eye,
that
the
that is something that is out there, that
and
different people perceive faces in different ways, even in animals. Um,
so I trusted him. And then when we met Akira, he was had a really good feeling about the basics. I saw certain things. I was asking questions. I was standing back and observing. Joel was more touching and you know, he's much more brave. He just goes right up and touching, and I was observing. He's risky. He takes risks that way.
He felt good about what he saw.
yeah.
He did.
He was comfortable to go.
Yes,
What about
yes.
this? You ever get the hackles on the back of your neck stand up when you walk in, and like you
Uh,
got the dog right there, and your hackles go up, and you could feel you get the chills kind of thing, right? You know your
mhm.
hair standing up. Those are
Right.
the I swear those are the ones that when that happens to me, that's when I start smiling because now I got to cover that up,
Mm.
because I have a feeling that they know when that happens to you, you know. That'd probably be a good science project, huh?
Yeah.
Hmm.
When
Do they
you get,
really know? Dogs know if you're fearful? Do they really
well, I'm
sense that?
saying if there's a visceral, that they have some visceral response to your physical change at that moment, even though it's
Mm.
not a big move. It's an internal thing, right? You get
Hmm.
nervous, there's a good reason for it. You get nervous. You don't want to show the dog that, but now all the hair on the back of your neck standing up, and you got to think. At least I'm always thinking, oh man, the dog knows how I feel right now, and I don't need him knowing that. So that's when I start, like, ha
Right.
ha ha. I try to cover that stuff up. It's like Jeff says, smell my shoes, do something to cover this up,
Here's some food.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I think dogs, just like you're talking about energy shifts, right?
Hmm.
And
Mm.
a lot of time there's a good portion of dog trainers who don't believe in energy and that exchange between handler and dog or human and dog. And if we feel the energy shift, you can bet your ass the dog feels the energy shift.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
yeah, most of the time we can cover up. And it's funny, when Steve was talking, I was thinking I don't know, I think it was 2 years ago, was probably the last time um, I kind of I got nervous in a home, and it was warranted. I knew that something was changing. The problem was I had two large male Great Danes cornering me,
Oh,
Mm,
and I had no, and they weren't, happy-go-lucky labs, if you know what I mean.
mm-hmm.
Um, and there wasn't cover up. It was, you need to get these dogs away from me right now. And
Hmm.
if they didn't, seriously, I was in serious trouble.
Mm,
So like when, and I guess I'm offering this, if especially if there's new trainers or something watching this. Like I do a lot with Steve. Sometimes our energy shifts, and we got to kind of fake it till we make it and get over that hump, and then we're smooth sailing, right? I was in a situation where there was no hump to get over. There was,
mm.
these dogs need to get away from me,
Wow.
and they were
Hmm.
fine one on one, but together they were not. Now, if they were two pits, I'd be okay, just because they're small. Like I'll figure it out. I can't handle 300 pounds of dog
Mm,
on my own. I just
Heck
can't.
no.
yeah.
So, but I'm glad Bonnie brought that up, because there's a lot of intuition that you're talking about, right, Bonnie?
Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And yep.
Yeah, but yeah, so
I
if
think back.
trust your gut, and also trust, because sometimes if I'm off, I have to make sure maybe I need to take a second and reassess how I'm feeling, and is it warranted, right? Because sometimes we could jump the gun,
That
maybe.
was going to be
Hmm.
how I'd like to end this, which is that can you know too much? Can trainers know too much and they look at a dog and they go, oh, that's whale eye, that's this, that's the other thing? Or is that legitimate and it's something to value? What you were talking about, Jeff, about that kind of combination that
Yeah,
you
so
had between the owner and the trainer.
I,
So
you know,
that's
I,
kind of where
I've
my mind went with
I've
it.
talked about this with a couple of my friends over the years, my trainer friends, and like we used to laugh. We were like, sometimes I know too much and I mess with
Yeah,
myself. Like I overanalyze, or maybe I'm overreading, or maybe I'm misreading, maybe I think I see something but I don't.
right.
Um, so I guess you could, but I think at the end of the day, if you're walking in the home in a good frame of mind,
Mm-hmm.
and you're prepared emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, at least for me, I literally listen to like Native American music on my way to problem dog
Mm-hmm.
session,
Mm.
because that helps center me,
Yeah, sure.
because I need to be centered spiritually, so I'm effective, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, that if I'm effective, then it's safe. But yeah, I could see where sometimes we can mess with our own heads, just by overanalyzing crap.
Okay.
it,
Anybody
it,
feel any different about that?
I mean, I'll go back to when Sue Sternberg had that special on HBO some years ago, Shelter Dogs, right? It was a difficult thing, just to watch because,
Right.
Sue was like really, I would consider her an expert in analyzing dog behavior. And I remember somebody brought a little American Cocker Spaniel into her office, and she kind of kneeled down, and there was no overt move by the dog. But Sue, while she was down there, looked up and said, "We got to put this one down," right? But I was cool with it because I kind of felt like I saw what I think she saw, and I mean, I was like, all right, this guy's not okay. And one of my friends who was actually training at Guiding Eyes at the time calls me right up because this is on TV. They film this thing. They film this cocker going to the animal hospital and being humanely euthanized by injection. And this
Mm,
guy called me up, honestly crying. He says, "Did you see that?" He thought it was TV, that it wasn't real, that they weren't really euthanizing the dog because
Hmm.
he couldn't understand why she elected to have that dog put down.
mm-hmm.
He says to me, "The dog didn't do anything." And I'm like, "The dog didn't have to do anything. Did you not see? Like, didn't you see how stiff this dog was and how worried, right?" she just bent down. She didn't touch the dog. All she did was kneel down, nice and easy, sideways, and this dog got like he wasn't going to have it. I think if she would have stretched her hand out, we would have seen some action then. But
Mm,
she didn't need to do that because she saw what she saw. She made the recommendation. It's not a simple one for anyone ever. And every time you make the recommendation, you have to say to yourself, I hope it was the right thing. And
mm-hmm.
when I die, if I go up, that I'm not met at the gate by this dog saying, they took
Mm,
me out a little early, thanks to you, pal. I don't
mm,
really, I have to think about that stuff. It's like, who are you
mm,
going to run into someday? So,
And
it was like,
Steve, and then there's the judgment too. Is it sick? Is there some reason that the dog's like that? I've seen that too.
well, you can have, you can go there, but I think that the dog was being relinquished, not as I guess they could have had the dog taken and thoroughly examined, but all she had to do was bend
Yeah.
down, right?
mm-hmm.
So we know sick dogs. I mean, sick or not, they're not trying
Hmm.
to kill you. This was, and it was. I mean, we know some things about cockers. I can't make a blanket statement. Let's face it. In the 1960s, they were like the number one dog to have, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
kids and all that, they were really an amazing breed of dog. But thanks to what happens when breeds become AKC popular, they became sharks for a lot of years, and
Yeah.
anybody in our business would say, "Oh no, cocker
Yeah,
spaniel."
yeah.
Yeah.
Nowadays, even the cocker poos could be a little tricky, and
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at the cocker side of that dog when you got problems, right? So you can't help it, just
No,
time.
and it's, I was thinking too, it's like, some it's like all of our personal judgments on dogs that we work with or what we feel they're like. The owner may have a different experience, and it's subjective with us and our experiences, but that's okay because I think the more experience you have as a trainer, the more you're going to at least be steering them in the right direction to help with whatever problem they have. You may not have everything analyzed right, and maybe that doesn't matter to the owner, but
Mm-hmm.
you're helping them with the issue that they need. And whether it's deciding if the dog is should be put down or help them with that decision or
That's a committed owner you're talking about. If you're talking about somebody who's committed, they've got a problem and they're committed to helping the dog. That's a different vibe than if somebody's dropping a dog off at Jeff's door. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
we've already been around the block with this dog. We are not committed to this dog.
Yeah.
And you could then assess the dog right then and say, oh boy. But we
Mhm.
all know that even if the dog was like a motorcycle guy, with like, piercings and leather jackets and stuff, I mean, after a little while with you or living with somebody who understands him, right? That dog that you got ill feelings about could turn into like somebody's really best forever friend, right? So all those things, you
Mhm.
gotta put them all out there. But I guess in Sue's case, just looking at so many dogs
Mm.
that need homes, and what are you going to do with the dogs that clearly are challenging, that we know end up oftentimes, I mean, I know this myself from my own shelter experience, weeks, months, and years in a kennel, right? Now,
Mm-hmm.
some of them, even after years, running up the walls, chasing their tail, every horrible thing, get a home like by some miracle. And 3 months later, we're getting pictures and videos of this dog like lounging on a hammock in somebody's backyard, like just being the center of, the whole Megillah. Like, they loved the dog to death, and somehow this lunatic turned into that in
Mm-hmm.
the right
Mhm.
environment, with the right folks. So is it always possible? I guess in some ways we can say it is always possible, but how probable is it that you will get a dog out of a really indecent kennel environment
Mm-hmm.
without the dog going south before you get him out and save him, right? Where
Mhm.
really just the whole dog kind of depreciates from like no contact, all the stuff,
Right.
all the stuff, no enrichment, just hanging in a kennel, waiting and waiting and waiting, and nobody
Mm.
coming, and people walking by, and I mean, it's rough, but I mean, my friend was mad because it's like she told him to put that dog down. I'm like, well, yeah, she did. Look how many dogs she's got to look at, and sadly has to choose. It's like I know I can move this dog, I can get this dog a home, and I can get that one a home, and she could care less what they look like. It was all about their character. But
Hmm.
you get one that is not okay, and this is always a discussion because if you should adopt out a dog that bites somebody and you get sued as the person who rescued the dog and furthermore placed it, what if they come for you? Do you got insurance? I mean, if you do have insurance and the insurance company has to pay off, will you still have insurance when it's done? Or you have to find a new insurance company? Will it limit your ability to help a lot of dogs that need help? If you help one that's edgy and it doesn't go well and it comes back to literally bite you, right? In a legal way.
Hmm.
This is rough. Excuse me.
Yeah.
This is rough stuff. This is Jeff's life, by the way, that I'm talking about.
Hmm.
Yeah, I disagree with just about everything you said. Yeah. You don't give a dog a day. You don't kill a dog because you met it for 5 minutes. I understand what you can't run the risk of having the dog, you know, regress over the course of years. I get that. I understand that, and I understand euthanasia is part of our business. Um, but to euthanize and nothing was done, I have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with a professional saying, okay, you know what? These are the dog's triggers. These are potential pitfalls
Hmm.
in placing this dog. And then you need to make a determination based on the information I'm providing you, whether you're going to work with the dog or euthanize it. But to just say euthanize with doing nothing, I have a problem with that.
It's
Don't
not.
get me started on the fake hand. We won't go there.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's,
All right. So,
And I'm
And as far as liability goes, you know,
this could be a
yeah,
whole
we'll just
discussion
leave it
one
on
day.
this with it. Who, if anyone's watching, okay, dogs are animals. Every dog can bite. If a rescue has a good
Yeah.
contract, they're not getting sued. Generally, people are meeting the dog, they're spending time with the dog, they're making an educated decision. And generally, if you have a good contract, you know, you are protected. And yeah, you do have insurance in the event something does go awry, but that's why we have insurance, right? Um, but you know, it could be any dog. And yes, some dogs are riskier than others, but I don't know. To kill a dog based on one interaction briefly, I have a problem with that.
okay. And that seems like a good place to stop. I really do wish that we could keep going on this conversation, but we do have to stop at some point. But it was definitely a very interesting conversation, and as
Yeah.
usual, went into places that I didn't see. But that's good
Yep.
because that means that it was a good conversation. And while we may not have come up with any answers, we certainly raised a lot of points that can be continued to be discussed, and perhaps some answers might come out of that. So, with that, I'd like to thank you all for being here. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. And please don't forget to like this video, follow us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done that already. And we'll see you next time, folks. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.